This is my file server computer. It is an HP Pavilion something or other. I have no idea. When we had a power failure a couple days ago, I turned this back on and one of the fans was making a funny noise. So it's time to take this apart and oil up all the fans. And while we're in there, we'll go ahead and blow out the dust as well. This has not been cleaned in at least 3 years. I don't think I've cleaned it since I moved in here. It runs continuously, and so for 3 years of continuous operation, that's not all that bad. It definitely could have used a cleaning before this, but it was definitely still getting air through the radiator and so forth. It wasn't overheating by any means. So I'll go ahead and take this outside. We'll blow it out, and then we'll remove all the fans, oil them, and put them back and hope that it's quiet. This is what I use for quick jobs like this. The Datavac electric duster. This is not as powerful as compressed air is from air compressor, but it's pretty good. It's got a filter on the bottom. This is just like it's like a vacuum, pretty much. Vacuum cleaner impeller. It's 4 amps. It's probably very comparable to what's in an Auric. And you can put different attachments on here. This is the one I find works pretty good. I've had this for a while. Looks like 2017 I got it. Made in USA, and it's still working. And I've gotten quite a bit of use out of this too. When I replaced this light, I installed a fixture with an outlet. I find the outlet is quite handy. I use it all the time. Most of the time it has the kitchen closet power bar plugged in. Sometimes it plugs in the electric duster. It did a good job. Radiator's all clear now. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. That thing works pretty good. The only problem with it is it overheats very quickly, so if you're going to be doing more than like 5 computers at a time, you might have some problems with that, but for most of the jobs I do, that is my tool of choice. I have one at work and I have one at home. And neither one has ever had a problem. Alright, so assessing this briefly, that seems a little stiff as opposed to this one, which seems pretty free. And then there's also the power supply fan. I think there's only 3 fans. That's not too bad. It's only been off for a couple minutes. I don't think so that we're going to hear the noise if I power it up now. I don't even think it's worth the time to try to find a power cable. We'll just go ahead and lubricate. We'll start with the CPU unit. Actually, I think this one actually has an APU. But we'll start with that one and see what happens. It looks like it's held on with some kind of annoying hex type screw thing. So this computer, it's kind of funny the way this came to pass. When I first started to get into collecting computers, I wanted to get a file server because I would make a document or something and then save it, and then I'd go to another computer later on and not be able to access it. Oh, you're kidding. This has to... Oh, for heaven's sakes. The bits are not going to fit through there. Yep, that's how we're going to solve the problem. So that was probably in the early 2010s, and then sometime along the way I was at a tag sale and I picked up a file server. No, that's not what happened. I picked up a server. It was not specifically a file server. It was a Dell PowerEdge something or other. I want to say it was an 1800. I have plenty of videos on that unit if you're curious to know exactly what it was. And, oh, for heaven's sakes. Anyway, so I picked up that file server. Nope. I picked up that server, and I want to say that I paid about $15 for it. Now, granted, this was back in the 2010s, so that's worth $250 in today's money or something like that. And well, not quite, but you get the point. Anyways, so I used that machine as a file server. I think I had 2 drives in it, and you know, one for the OS and one for files. It was a pretty small setup. I think I only had maybe a terabyte in there at the time, and that was sufficient at the time for what I was saving. And that unit actually ran Windows XP. I don't recall if I ever put Windows 7 on there or not. At one point, I used it for years, and then the power light started to flash orange, and it just wasn't working properly anymore. And I didn't feel like it was worth the time to try to repair it, because I had more than got my money's worth out of it. I had it for years. It was kind of loud. It was really bulky. It was a very big unit. It wasn't ideal for the way I was using it anyways. Now, sometime between then and, you know, when I got it and when it broke, my uncle had given me a bunch of old computers that he had and said, you know, I don't want these anymore. Throw them out. Use them for whatever you want. I don't care. And this was one of them, this desktop. And he said that there was something was wrong about it. I think he said that like it would shut down occasionally, or so. It was broken in some capacity as far as he was concerned. And so I wasn't going to keep it because I don't really like HP computers anyways. So I was just going to take the drives out and get rid of it. And in typical fashion, I set it aside and never got around to it. So it sat in my closet for X number of years, and then the file server unit that I was using broke. And I said, I need a computer that I would never set up as a regular workstation. And this came to mind. And I says, well, let me give it a try. You know, let's see what's wrong with it. So I tested it out, let it run for a while, and it seemed to work just fine. Let it run for a couple of days, never shut down, nothing. And so I said, okay, we're going to use that one as my file server. So I put it in service, and it would continue to run for years straight with no problems. And that takes us to today, where we're discovering the first problem, which is that this VN does not appear to have an oil port. there's like, oh, whoops. You can see the like the outline where it would be. Normally there's like a rubber plug there, and you can pop it up and put some oil in, and you can see the circular outline here of where it would normally be, but there's no port. Don't like HP computers. This is a Delta fan, which is usually a pretty good quality product. Doesn't say if it's a ball bearing. This, I think, is definitely the problem. You can see it's a little bit stiff. Nowhere's near locking up, but oh well, it's a run it till it breaks. It works just fine. It only makes the funny sound for a couple seconds when you first turn it on, and I never really shut it off, so it's not a big deal. It would be nice to fix it and know that it's correct, but it's not going to allow us to do that. Why is there a knot in this? Well, I guess there's no servicing involved. This is just a clean. Clean the computer and put it back and hope for the best. That's what this is. It's not how I like to operate, but you can only work with what you're given when it comes to something like this. I could replace the fan, yes, that is true. Don't feel like it. I have other computers. Actually, I have full-on server units that I picked up over the years that I always thought I would use for this particular use case, and they're still sitting on the shelf waiting to be used. So if this really takes a dive, I'll get out one of those. Or when it comes time to expand the storage, which we're getting close to, then I might move over to one of those. This is the worst case I've ever worked on. What a stupid design. I'm personally a big fan of Dell. I like Dell's hardware and worked on tons of Dell's machines over the years. I've never seen something stupid like this. Maybe I just got lucky and worked on all the good models, but this is ludicrous. I mean, how are you supposed to... Unreal. It should be a longer screw that goes through the top. You'd have to have freakishly small fingers to be able to put this in nicely. Right now I have 3 drives in here. This only has two caddies, so it's a bit of a ghetto setup. Two drives are for storage and one is for the operation system. I suppose what I could do is I could use a larger drive for the operation system and just partition it. You know, one for the operation system and one for the data. The unit is running Windows 7 still. It goes online daily. It backs up through the internet over Windows 7 with no problems. It never gets hacked. It never gets exploited or whatever else crazy terms people like to use to try to scare people into updating to newer versions of Windows. Yes, it's missing some patches, but that doesn't mean that it's going to just simultaneously get a virus and explode and leak all my information out there. That's not how the computer works. It's going to remain Windows 7 for as long as the screw those last 2 screws. I ain't playing with that. It's going to remain Windows 7 until the backup software. It's going to remain Windows 7 until the backup software stops working. I don't know when that's going to be. Usually you'd get an email saying that's coming up. I haven't seen anything like that yet. So hopefully that's a ways off, because then I'll have to buy a new piece of hardware. Okay, that's that. This drive just kind of sits here. Oh, it's stuck. That's not good. What the heck? How did that happen? Well, this one's 4 terabytes. The other one's 3 terabytes. I think the operating system one is a whole terabyte. Just because that's what it came with. I'm trying to think of how I set this up now. I think what I did was I took the SATA from the CD card, the CD player, and used that for the drive instead. And that just sits there. It's been like that for years. It doesn't care. What's that saying? The plumber has the leakiest pipes, the computer tech has the worst equipment at home. Oh well. Oh, let's put this thing back in place. This is where it resides. It's a little difficult to get it in and out because of all the junk that's floating around here, but it's just the way it is. There's only 2 plugs. You have network and power. That's it. And the power cord doesn't have a lot of slack, so I gotta put it like this in order to plug it in. And here we go. It made the sound that time. I can't tell which fan it is, but if you can't oil them, it doesn't matter which one it is. What a stupid design.